All right, everyone, if you're joining here with me, thank you. We're going to wait just a little bit, let people load in, but we're going to go over some of the developments with the system. If you've been following closely, there's not going to be too many surprises, I would hope, that you get out of this. But this is just to emphasize, what I see coming, as well as many other people, but to really kind of drive home what we should be looking at as we get within that 24-hour mark, which we are now. So welcome. Give it just a few minutes here, and we will get started. And just to add, you can ask questions on the Zcast page on Facebook, and then as well as here on the YouTube chat. Sorry to hear that these events ruined your plans there, Lawrence. Yeah, it's a strange time of the year for a lot of people, but in the last several years we've had some significant snow. Nothing like this in March, but it's definitely made some people itching for spring a little more. But again, anybody new to this, I'm going to address any questions or anything afterwards. This is really just kind of a brief overview of what to expect in the next 24 hours, where we're at now as far as what models are telling us, and just some key things that I kind of point out. Yeah, I could do that. And I'll put my page in the link there for anyone joining outside of my page. But we'll go ahead and get started here, because I know we got quite a few people. So again, thank you very much for joining. This has been quite a system to follow. I'll say that the last 6 days, it's been interesting to watch how this has evolved. Initially, the shortwave showed up on models. Everyone was fretting about the fact that we weren't getting this Sunday night event. But the real event, as we're seeing now, is what was coming afterward with that third wave. And in many parts in the Northeast, this is going to be a historic blizzard. 65 mile an hour gusts of winds along the New Jersey, New York, Long Island coast, with anywhere from 20 to 25 inches of snow is not out of the realm of possibility. As a matter of fact, on the GFS ensemble, it's in the 99th percentile that a foot of snow or more is coming, which I don't think I've seen that before with the GFS ensemble. So that's pretty impressive, and that just gives you an idea of just how strong of a signal this is. So again, we're gonna take a look here real quick, and I'll tell you, I really like the UK Met model. It's almost become my second favorite model, Euro being number one, GFS in my opinion too. But the UK Met does a pretty good job with tracking low pressure. It sniffed out Matthew, which is amazing. It actually sniffed out that curve away from the coast before any of the globals, and it's done it on several other larger systems. So kudos to that model, what you're looking at right here. And this is the low pressure track. That's where it's circled right now, rather in this region. It's where it is currently, or I'm sorry, that was yesterday. It's about in this region right now as it makes its way down off the coast of North Carolina and then pops up. And I'm bringing this up because these models are kind of waffle back and forth. You saw my post yesterday when people were losing hope of snow. Again, it's the windshield wiper effect where, and give me just a second, I don't have my program up in here with my cursor. There we go. But you would see with these low pressure centers, you would see one run would be here, one run would be out here, the next run would be out here, out to sea, the next run will be back in. That windshield wiper effect will drive you crazy if you take it verbatim every single run. If you look at the ensembles, which I'll show you a screenshot here in a second. Actually, let me just bring it up right now. This is an example of, look at all the different low pressure centers, right? I mean, they're all over the place. Now, there's pretty good consensus that's going to be right here popping off at the southern Outer Banks near Emerald Isle area. But you could see that there's a lot of low pressures in and around that area. So, and the spread isn't that much. So when you get these minute shifts, 30 miles east-west, 60 east-west, it's going to throw off totals run to run. So that's why it's important to understand a good model. It doesn't waffle as much when it comes to that low pressure. And the UK Met to me is that model. And I really put a lot of weight behind where it puts that low pressure center. It is a tad west than the globals at this time. And I think that affects DC more than anybody. And we'll get into that in a little bit here. But overall, it's a great track for a northwest to central Pennsylvania, eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey QPF bomb of a storm. So that's the first thing I'll talk about, the UK Met. Next thing is going to be precipitation totals. So I've seen some astronomical numbers. I've seen 2 inches of QPF, which is, anyone not familiar, QPF just basically stands for amount of precipitation, not snow totals, amount of precip. So you can see in areas like here in Loudoun, I zoom in a little bit more, we're at what, 1.2, 1.3 in southern Fauquier, 1.3 down here in this region, and you can see that gradient pretty much stays the same across the area. I think that's pretty accurate. The GFS has done a good job with maintaining the amount of moisture. I've seen other models kind of up and down as far as how much QPF has dropped, including the UK Met. But I don't really trust that as far as how much moisture. Again, the UK Met for me is track. So the GFS, I think, is that nice, safe route to go down as far as how much precipitation. And if taken verbatim at 10-to-1 ratio, 10 inches to every inch, 10 inches of snow to every inch of QPF, this would be a foot of snow, 11 inches, 10 inches. So taken that way, literally the whole region's going to see double digits. And I think that's a pretty fair assumption outside of the Beltway. We'll get to that in a minute. So the GFS, and I want to point out kind of how much it's waffled back and forth with the low. Take a look at this here. This is the most current run, which is today at 6. Again, copious amounts of snow for the Mid-Atlantic. No shortage of that at all. But if you take a look here at the previous run, you can see where it has tracked west recently, closer to the UK Met. It was further east before, now it's coming back. The European doing the same thing. It too was coming back. So in my opinion, they're all narrowing down as far as where that low is going to be. And my guess is going to be just off the Delmarva, which is right here. For those not familiar, that low pressure, probably next run, is going to be right in here in this area. And I think it won't waffle much from that. But that will affect DC totals. And like I keep saying, I'll talk about that in a second. Here's the European. Look at that low position. I think that's nailed it. I think this latest run of the Euro this afternoon has exactly where that low pressure is going to be. I don't think it's going to come any further west. If it does, it could be a tiny tick. Nothing too crazy. So again, that's right where you want it. And I'm going to start getting into maps and ratios. Now, looking at this map, you see a lot of big totals here, especially for central Maryland, up near Baltimore. I'm not convinced with these totals. This is a pretty reliable Kuchera ratio snow map, so I'm interested to see how close this verifies. And we'll see what tomorrow's run safe that comes down from this or not. But to suggest 18 inches of snow, you know, that's might be a little high, I think. I think 15 in this region is a more reasonable outcome. So I just want to show you the range. And here's another one, which is Euro WX, which I subscribe to. And I think they're a little too conservative with their ratios. You can see 11 inches here in Loudoun, and then it jumps down to about 8, then 7 and 6 through the DC area. Pretty close, but I think this is, and typically they're always on the lower end as far as totals are concerned. So let's take a look at the Euro most recently. And I think we're getting a little bit closer to reality. Now, the 20 inches in Loudoun, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure about that. I'm going to say more around 15-ish, but you know, my snow map will be out here later. We'll go over that in that post. But you can see that gradient from I-95, right? Jumps down to 3 inches here near Fredericksburg, and then up near 20 in Loudoun. That's quite the jump. Now let's talk about the freezing line. This is a little bit getting to DC. This is about 42 hours from now. So 24 hours from now, you can see nothing's really started yet. 30 hours from now, the precip is making its way in. And then about 36 hours from now, you can see that blue line here. You see that blue line? That's the freezing line. You can see on the onset, it looks like it mixes a little bit before we actually get a solid slug of snow into DC. And then if I back out, go to 42 hours from now, you can see it's flirting with that freezing line again, but it is east of DC. Something to consider. 48, it's making its way out, getting some nice wraparound snow, and then at 54 we're still getting snow, and at 60 hours from now we're still getting snow. Could be a rather long event into Wednesday. So Wednesday morning. Next thing I want to show you here is this is National Weather Service's potential for this much frame. The reason I bring this up versus most likely is because I think this is closer to reality than their most likely. I think their most likely is a little conservative. They're leaning a little bit too much on some of the JV models, as I like to call them, the NAM, although the NAM killed us, but the RPM and the JMA and the RGEM, like some of those just, they're so inconsistent, and I think that does factor into some of their ratios, and also the mixing. They think that there's going to be a bit of mixing in our region, and I want to tell you right now, I don't believe that at all. I think closer to DC, you're going to see some mixing, and maybe that 13-inch is maybe a little high for them, but we're not going to see that mixing as much, if at all, in the Northern Virginia area, from, I would say, central Fairfax to the northwest. This is a percentage of a foot or more of snow, and you can see in this area we're in that 60 percentile for most of this area, 40 percentile for here. I think this is a day old though, so disregard this. It's not up to date. The next thing here is showing you what the temperatures are. Now this was run on Friday, and I'm sorry, this was verified on Friday, and you can see this shaded area is a core of cold air that's in central Canada. Negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the high pressure that is bringing down the cold air that is providing us with the fuel to convert this to snow, of course. And it is a powerful, powerful air mass, and it will actually make its way to the core over the Great Lakes. And you'll see Wednesday night into Thursday through the weekend, very cold temperatures, high 20s for highs. So this is big boy cold that's coming in. This is not March typical cold front. This is like early January type stuff. So there's no shortage of cold air. And then real quick, the last thing I want to go over is there was a post made by the Capital Weather Gang. And they show this snow map. And I just have to say this because I think it's a little misleading. They post 54-hour total snowfall, which technically speaking, the storm's over by then. But this snow map is awful. It is just god-awful. Suggesting that DC gets no snow or an inch. I'm telling you, none of these models are saying this. And for some reason, they felt it necessary to post this. Now, I know it's a tough forecast. I agree with them. I agree. But this is misleading, this snow map. There are people that are going to see this because they're a very popular Twitter handle and weather blog for Washington Post, and they're gonna go look to their friends or family or whoever and say, "Hey, look, Capital Weather Game shared a map that shows we get no snow." What happens if they get 10 inches? Again, this is Storm Vista that they're using, and they're just not reliable snow maps whatsoever. So, if you see this circulating, pretty much just toss it. Don't even bother with it as far as considering it. So that's really what I have for that. I did want to go over one more thing here. Don't know if I pulled it up. I apologize for that, but again, I just want to go over this real quick before we finish. The position of the low is key for this. Any shifts east or west can drastically change our totals. But the UK Met, which is a little further west than some of the operationals from GFS and Euro, is holding tight here that it's going to pass over the Delmarva. And I even saw, I think, an east shift slightly on the latest run. So that's good news for snow lovers in the mid-Atlantic. Again, we went over the moisture and whatnot. So between the UK Met track, between the GFS moisture, and I believe how the Euro is handling that low and the progression of the storm, I think we're going to see a lot less mixing than people are indicating. There are some fears about the temperatures that we're going to experience through this event, and I'm telling you, just based on what we're seeing with this high pressure center that is making its way into, again, the northern, actually not even northern, the central Great Lakes, even into Ohio some, this high is legit cold. This is not a snowquester situation where we were waiting on that cold air to arrive just as the storm arrived. It will be here waiting as the precipitation arrives, and it will stick around and get colder throughout the day. So that's what I have for that, guys. I will be posting my snow map here after this, but I want to address any questions here real quick, and it looks like... so you're talking about last year's January storm, which would be greater. I mean, Jonas was like a 2.5 day event with more snow. So I would definitely say for our region, not as much of an impact. Still a significant impact, but not as much. Up at the Northeast is going to get just pounded with snow and the winds, so the drifts. And I even saw, and I wish I pulled it up, but I even saw a hurricane hunter that on Twitter who's making his way up to the Jersey coast because they're going to have like 13-foot swells in some areas from this. So that's some significant coastal erosion and flooding, along with 20 plus inches of snow for a lot of those areas. So quite the impact. Yeah, Lawrence, National Weather Service warnings are legit. This is a widespread storm, and it will go up from far south as where we are up to Maine in terms of impacts and double-digit snows. And Alex asking, again, thank you for joining. I appreciate that, your followership there. And I'm looking here, what is your prediction for New York City? New York City, Long Island is going to get the brunt of this. You're going to get high winds. You're going to get double-digit snows. I think 12 inches to 12 to 18 is definitely doable. Even some areas in the 20s. High winds, and in some areas, coastal flooding and erosion. So, pretty serious stuff. Starting times, I am thinking probably around this time tomorrow. We're going to start to see precipits around 8 p.m. But then it's not going to stop until like Wednesday morning. It's going to be continuing through. And it's going to, here's the thing. We're going to get the thump overnight. That's when the heaviest stuff will get going. Temperatures will be at their lowest. There will be no sun angle to mess with the rates. I'm sorry, I just hear that so much. Sun angle season. But this disregards the whole sun angle talk because it's bringing a ton of moisture. The cold air is there. Yes, we'll get some mixing up down I-95 around the Beltway, but totals will still be there. And that's pretty much it, guys. So if you got any more questions, let me check the old Facebook page. Jen asking about what is your feeling on the lasting impact in terms of roads melting and closures beyond Tuesday? This hits Tuesday. The way that it's been modeled, schools will be closed Tuesday and Wednesday. Because the temperatures are going to crash overnight on Tuesday night into Wednesday and stay that way through the week. So I definitely believe we will see closures across the region, and I think 2 days is a pretty fair assumption at this point. When is the frigid air expected to hit? It's already coming, that air, Jennifer. I would say you're going to really start to feel it tomorrow night as the onset begins. And then as the event continues, it will continue to be frigid, especially in the Northwest. Daryl's asking about Baltimore. Baltimore is interesting. Baltimore is going to be interesting because it's, again, right along that I-95. You're closer to the coast, so you get a little bit warmer air that comes off the Atlantic. But you could be in a spot where you see 20 plus inches as well. I would say 15 at this point is doable, but you could see more than that with some heavy, heavy winds. So it's going to be an interesting, very interesting event up and down 95 from Baltimore all the way up to Maine. Within D.C., you won't see the winds as much. They'll get the gusts. But I really think that their mixing will happen, but you're still going to see some decent totals there. And just give it one more refresh, make sure we got everything out. Again, if you have anything that you think of later, to put it up here, I'll answer you. Pretty laid back with that. McKenna, I'm going to have to look up Charles County, honestly. I'm not really sure. I'll let you know. I'll reply to you on your question. All right, guys. I think that is it. Let me check my messages here. All right, guys. Again, thank you very much. I'll send out the snow map here in give me 15 minutes. We'll have it. And if you have any questions, shoot them out to me. If not, I'll have my final map out tomorrow. I will have that done by 3 p.m. And we'll see what happens. Oh, Central Virginia. Honestly, Central Virginia, guys, I just don't see it happening. And if you're talking about Central Virginia, like Richmond, the Charlottesville area, I don't see it really happening. Maybe a couple of inches with the onset, but not much afterwards. So that's that. Carlos asking about getting off the roads. Definitely don't be on the roads tomorrow, tomorrow night into Tuesday morning. That's just, especially with these heavy rates. I mean, we're talking 2 to 3 inch rates at some point. I think it was between, 5 and 7 a.m. I was seeing, but you should be on the roads if you can help it. And if you have to, then just be extremely cautious. And I may stream tomorrow night depending on what we see. If I see a lot of the same thing, then I'll just do normal post updates. But thank you guys very much. I appreciate all the participation. It really helps with getting all the information out of my brain out to you guys. And thank you for all the great comments, too. I do enjoy doing this, and it's mainly to be informative as possible and bringing you guys the best information that I have and my interpretation of it. So, again, thank you very much. You guys have a great evening, and I'll see you again on the next stream.